Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat we have in store here on Sportswire Radio because I'm really excited about this one because we do all different things here on Sportswire Radio. We've covered a lot of college basketball in the past, and I think it's a good time to get into some college basketball and especially some Mississippi Gulf Coast basketball here with the women's basketball team. And excited to have on our head coach, Hope Adams, who's done a phenomenal job. You think about college basketball in the Mississippi area. Coach has done a phenomenal job turning that program around. She has also had a decorated career in her own right, also playing, coaching, everything else in the game. So I'm excited. I know everyone else here is going to be excited. So without further ado, we're on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, the head coach of our Mississippi Gulf Coast women's basketball team, Hope Adams. Coach, I hope you like the Michael Buffer introduction of you.
I loved it. Maybe I was thinking about, should I get my chair going? Should I do a run out of intro?
I get that all the time at this point. We do a lot of pro wrestling here on Sportswire Radio, and I speak with all the wrestlers all the time, and they're like, can you come down to England? Can you come down to Australia and do our introduction? So hopefully we'll get the same treatment for you down in the great state of Mississippi. But, Coach, it is a tremendous honor to have you. And first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to, of course, Michael Williams of the Williams Advancement Agency. And Coach Williams has been a very, very dear friend of mine for a long time, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak with you through him, so I want to give him a huge shout-out. But, Coach, obviously, I want to set the tables for those that are watching and listening to this on Sportswire Radio, sportnarium.com/player. All of our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever else. And talk to me about how you got involved in the game of basketball, first things first.
Well, it's kind of in my family. So I was the first grandkid that was born in 20 years in our household.
Okay.
So my mom had 14 other siblings.
Wow.
Wow. Yes, with 3 of those being younger than her, and she had a younger sister. So when I was born, my Aunt Faye was going through high school, and of course she was a basketball star. And so, of course, I had the opportunity to go to games. They put me in a cheerleading outfit, but they figured out very quickly that I was not going to be a cheerleader. But I was just able to watch her develop into her career. So out of high school, she actually signed with a junior college in Alabama. From there, she signed and went and played at Southeastern Louisiana. She moved on from there, became a coach, and as well as spent the year in our league at Meridian Community College as an assistant coach there. And I can't lie, I kind of watched her. All my uncles, it's 10 men in the family. So I watched how they gathered around her, and she never wanted for anything. I was like, okay, that's easy. So if I just go to school and basically play ball and do what I'm supposed to do, this thing can be pretty easy. And so she's been my role model all my life. And so I always want to follow her footsteps. And that's kind of what led me to where I am right now.
I want to get into that. Obviously, we'll get into your basketball journey to where you are today. We'll get into the team. But to have such a big family that you're a part of, I mean, I'm from New York, and I could only imagine what that'd be like here in New York and such. I actually, frankly, I mean, I have 2 brothers, and it was tough enough just growing up in New York City with 2 brothers. But, I mean, being such a part of a big family, I mean, how did that maybe mold you into the individual that you are? Because I have to think that trait maybe in a way kind of laid the seeds or the foundations of being the kind of leader that you are right now, Coach.
Most definitely. So basically my mom had me when she was 20. So she was a young mother, which I was in the home with my grandfather and my grandmother. And so really close to my grandmother. My grandfather passed when I was in the 9th grade. But,
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. But I got to spend a lot of time with them. And so they were hard workers. Everything we ate, they grew in the garden. From everything we ate, they raised because they had a lot of kids, obviously.
Sure.
Now, when I came through, majority of the kids were grown, but they still had those customs. But the one thing that I do take from my family is that we all got each other back. And the siblings run from 70 years old, and the baby boy is 49. And so it's a big gap between them. But we all got each other back. I want to say it's like 35 grandkids, and then all of us got kids. I have 3 kids of my own. So you double that up, that's about 60 greats. So we always got a joke about we don't have to invite anybody else. Like my granny, her brothers and sisters, like when
you guys can like make a party just like within a party.
We're like our own little clique on its own. And so, but I come from a great family, a great foundation. Of course, they instilled my faith in me. They, I watched my grandmother and the woman that she was and how she raised her kids. And, I never seen her sweat. And so she instilled a lot of that in me, that strength, that resilience to just keep pushing and, whatever that you have in mind as your goal or your dream, you can reach that if you just don't quit and you keep pushing.
Absolutely, no question about it. I always say here, and I've said the expression that John F. Kennedy said and Ronald Reagan said, a rising tide lifts all boats, and certainly your grandmother and the entire family. I mean, my goodness. I mean, certainly I can only imagine what the dinner table was like and the food bill, because I used to work at a supermarket here back in New York City, and my parents would always be like, well, the food bill this week was that much money, and it was that much money that we only had. So I can only imagine your house, but obviously that is why you are the leader. That's why you are the person that you are, and that also then leads me to the game of basketball. And obviously you have such a strong pedigree, and I'm going to get into that. Obviously we'll touch into the team as well. But I mean, talk to me about, early memories of basketball leading you into where we are today, whether it was a player and as a coach, obviously, for our women's basketball team at Mississippi Gulf College.
The early years, of course, my uncle just taking me out and playing on the dirt roads. And so I was a tomboy. The only girl in the neighborhood that was basically playing ball at the time. So
sure.
The only way I could, get a little pickup in is to go out there with some of the older guys in the neighborhood. So for a little while, my uncle would be out there with me, but eventually he decided, okay, you're going to have to let me make sure that you can hold yourself together, because I'm not going to be able to be out here always.
Sure.
But just, growing up, playing ball up the street, that's what I wanted to do. Mom couldn't do my hair. I came back. It was
I can relate. I've got long hair myself, so I can relate, Coach.
So, but then moving on, going into junior high, it's been a lot of people that has gotten me to where I am. That's like that extended family. Coach Howell, she coached my aunt, so she was still there when I came through junior high. She was a tough lady, like a really tough lady. But and then I moved on into the 9th grade, and I had Coach Nelson, who won 3 state championships at my high school and was a great coach. After my 9th grade year, he retired, and then I got Coach Stone, and I finished out with him. But just all the coaches that have blessed me and been able to come to my life, they all gave me something that I still use to this day. And so moving on from high school, I went to the University of Memphis, which is a unique story within itself. My freshman year, I kind of had to transition into a guard, and I had been under the basket all my high school career. And so the only way I could play, it's like, okay, well, I'll be the person that's going to play defense. I dive on the floors. I guard the best player. I rebound, because I just wanted to be on the floor. And I understood that there was going to be a scoring gap, while I was transitioning. But my sophomore year, I actually got pregnant with my twins that I have now. It's a boy and a girl. And so wasn't expecting that, but we definitely all make our own share of mistakes, but they have been a tremendous blessing to me. And I would say one of the reasons why I am actually here right now, because in the moment where I could have quit, I set out a year, I got them to where they could kind of fend for themselves a little bit. And I went back and continued to strive to get my degree. And so I ended up finishing my basketball career at Union University, which was a great place for me. It's a Christian university. Coach Campbell was awesome.
Sure.
He poured into me. At the time, I was a wife, and so him and his wife was able to minister to me about, being a mom as well as a wife. And it was other great people around me as well while I was in Union. And at that moment, I didn't know I wanted to coach. I can't lie. I was trying to go the opposite direction. I wanted to be a nurse. But I had a lady that spoke over my life, and she basically told me, she's like, you're going to coach college ball one day. And at this moment, I'm not even a coach. I usually don't share this story live, but it was a unique moment for me, as now that I'm looking back and I'm realizing, 18 years ago, somebody seen something in me that I definitely did not see in myself. And it was a lot of trials and tribulations that came in between that time period to get me where I am now. And so, one thing I can say, when God got a plan, you just got to roll with it. And so that leads me back to, I ended up moving to Oxford and getting back involved in coaching with my local high school. Stayed there 2 years, got me to where I am now. I started off as an assistant here, and then a year later as a head coach.
Well, certainly quite an interesting journey there. I mean, I speak to people all the time in different walks of life, and that's one of the more interesting ones. And I appreciate the fact that you actually shared it. And I want to give a shout out here to John Gonzalez, who's the man who runs the Sports Authorities group, which I'm a moderator for on Facebook. So I want to thank John for tuning in here and saying, good job, Tom. I want to thank also Jason Facina, who's the head coach over the Five Town Sound women's and men's soccer teams who won the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Championship here on Long Island, for tuning in. Also, Keith Angle from TGI Sports. I want to thank those guys for tuning in. I appreciate that here. We with Hope Adams, the head coach of our Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College women's basketball team. Done a phenomenal job there. And almost have to ask you then, transitioning, you go from Memphis, and obviously Memphis is just, everybody knows Memphis, right? Penny Hardaway, we think about all the big thing. Memphis is a big time program, but then you go to Union, and then you're almost becoming a mother and you're transitioning to being a family. I mean, I find that so interesting because I speak with college basketball coaches all the time at this level, and it's kind of hard really to have a family or be a husband or a wife, conversely, and then want to do this. I mean, walk me through how you were able to kind of, juggle all these things. Because as you know, you're a coach, and I speak to coaches and players. And one of my very good friends who's with me on my Friday night shows, the brute force Brad Weiss, just was a college basketball player and has transitioned to being a coach right now at the high school level. So walk me through, how did you transition and pull off all those things? I mean, that's quite a story there, Coach.
God.
Okay, well, I can't argue with that. I am a reverend, so I can't argue with that one.
That's the first thing to come to mind. But no, I always tell my players now, when you put your mind to something, you can basically overcome anything. And at that point, I had two children. I realized I got to get this done. So there was no turning back. Of course, the resources that Union provided made that easier. I was in marriage and family housing. Coach Campbell made the transition very easy because I was actually considering not playing ball. And I actually transferred into a JUCO for a year here in Mississippi at Northwest Community College. And I had about 10 offers on the table. And I basically turned every last one of them down. He called me in June, where I basically had decided, I'm just going to finish school and be a mom. And I went on a visit, and I decided, I'm gonna go give it a try. And so he basically provided me with the resources that I needed to continue to play ball and get my degree without being in debt, as well as being a mother. My husband at the time, his mother moved down as well. And she was able to be there full time with the kids while I was off on trips and doing school.
Okay, well, certainly that's quite a story there. And listen, I mean, thankfully they gave you that opportunity to go to school and not have to be sad with all that student loan debt with all these people are salary. That's a different story for a different time. And obviously, I could certainly see why you're able to do all those things very successfully. And I'm also curious about this for your background, because I find this so fascinating. And the fact that you're also a sports trainer and also a nutritionist. And that's unique because, again, I speak with a lot of coaches all the time, and they have a hard enough time just doing the X's and O's, right? Just have a hard enough time being able to get our kids to be able to go out there and, put the uniform on and do what you guys and gals tell them all to do. I mean, so I'm curious on how are you able to get into that, and maybe how does that help you with the team?
I started off as a trainer with just training local high school kids when I was living in Jackson, Tennessee. I worked for Solis Performance. And so when I was at Union, we went there. That's where our team trained as well. So just kind of transitioning as a post-grad, I started working with them. And so that's kind of how I got into it. When I moved back home, that's kind of what got me through the door. I was the trainer. And so I started off just doing the strength and conditioning for Oxford High girls. And then that kind of moved into more of the coaching role as well. But I love the weight room. I love conditioning. I love to see how the girls' bodies transform. We signed a kid 2 years ago that came in at 360. Right now, she's sitting about 275. And so, that's changed her life. It's not so much about basketball.
Sure.
That's her being healthier. That's her having a longer life. The confidence that she has right now. And we're still on that mission as of today. Our goal is to get her to 220.
Okay.
And she's been really committed to it. And I know she's going to get there by the time we start next season. And so that's my strength. And I think it's mainly because I love to see when people have a goal and they want to feel better about themselves. I like to be that person to help them reach that goal. And then being able to transition that into basketball as a coach, it just helped me make sure that my girls are in top-notch shape.
Oh, no question about that. And listen, Coach, we could use you in professional wrestling because I speak with wrestlers all the time, and you could certainly help some of the guys that we speak with in the UK. I mean, so certainly if you ever get bored of basketball, I could probably get you a position out there training some world champions in wrestling. So I'm not saying don't quit the women's basketball team, but if something ever comes, we'll certainly make sure of that. But I'm curious when it comes to all that stuff because I really think that that's so helpful, especially maybe in terms of giving our players confidence, because you bring up the one example of a player that was 360 and 275 going down to 220. I mean, like you said, that's a life transformation. I mean, you wouldn't think when you think about basketball coaches, you don't think about those things. You just think, well, okay, well, everybody that's a player just goes out, they go to the weight room, whether it's, once a day or they do, their exercise, whether they do their running, whether they do their bike ride, whatever it might be. And they're just naturally in shape. I mean, you wouldn't think that there'd be a problem or that would be a need for that in the game of basketball. I mean, I have to think in some ways that gives an advantage to our team that you have a background in that. And also, I mean, walk me through how important that is, the side of the fact that you are a trainer and that helps in conditioning and nutrition. Because again, I wouldn't think about that necessarily because I would think, okay, well, they play in a gym 2 or 3 hours a day in practice. They hit the weights, they go to the gym, they get the sleeps in between, and then they figure out whatever else they got to do when they're in class, and then that's the day. I mean, walk me through some of those things and like how does that help in terms of a day-in-and-day basis for our girls?
The main thing is that I always tell them basketball is not fun when you're not in shape. You can't make the decisions that you need to make while you're fatigued. And so the whole point of the strength and conditioning program and making sure that we're pushing them to their max is that when you're having that moment where you're hitting that wall, but you're still on that floor and I don't have a timeout, I need to know that mentally you could take your mind somewhere to where you could still make, good decisions with the flow of the game. I mean, that's the difference between being in the last 30 seconds. If I don't have a timeout, you might have just been on a run for the last 3 minutes. I still got to depend on the 5 players that's on that floor to know that they're mentally in shape, to know that they're mentally conditioned for that moment. And so the preseasons, the summer workouts is really just to build them up to where when they get to those moments, they're able to overcome because we have basically pushed them past being mentally fatigued. And because I always tell them that you're going to get tired. If I go out there and run I could be in the best shape of my life. If I go out there and run a full sprint, when I get to the end of the sprint, I'm going to be breathing heavily.
Sure.
The thing with being in shape is how fast I can recover after I do that sprint and then be able to do it all over again at full speed.
I'm glad you brought that up because in a way, again, I hate bringing up wrestling, but we do so much wrestling on here and I speak to a lot of the wrestlers and the wrestlers tell me that even when they're in the ring for, a 10 or 15 minute match, that the conditioning and what you just talked about, the endurance are so important because you think, oh, okay, well, I'm in great shape. I've got a 6-pack and whatever it might be. I don't have any real body fat, but you can get winded out there and that can lead to things. And there are different terms and expressions for that. I'll leave it for another place, another time. But in terms of, what happens when they're in the ring and things do happen. So the fact that you are stressing and emphasizing those things, I think are very important and why we're excited to have you on here. And of course, if you like what you hear from Coach Adams, I would highly highly recommend that you do give her a follow on Instagram at Coach Adams3 and keep up to date with all the great things that she is doing. You can also follow her on Twitter as well at Coach Adams MGCCC. Also, the women's basketball team MGCCC_WBB. That's Coach Adams3 on Instagram. Also on Twitter, that is Coach Adams MGCCC. And also for the women's basketball team at Mississippi Gulf Community College, that is MGCCC_WBB. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. We are very excited to have you with us Hope Adams, who is doing a phenomenal job. Who just completed her 5th season with the team in the program. Obviously, another winning season, another trip to the NJCAA tournament. We'll get into all of that here. I am the host of the Sports Report here, and if you like what you hear from Sportswire Radio, please give us a like anytime on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our content on sportnarium.com/player. I also want to thank Michael Williams of the Williams Advancement Agency. Of course, we mentioned him earlier. I want to make sure everybody follows the Williams Advancement Agency here on Twitter at Williams Advance 1. That's without the E. Also, Williams Advancement Agency on Instagram as well. And also officially M. Williams on Instagram as well. So thank you, Coach, for all of your support. So, I mean, Coach, let's get into it. Obviously, talking about the season here, I know it wasn't quite as successful as the last few seasons, but we still made the postseason. We still had some quality wins, and we had some players that really had some bang-out seasons, and I want to get to that. So set the tables for us on now that it's been a little while since the season has been completed, and how do you feel that the season went overall for our women's basketball team?
This season, Tom, was a year of just adversity. My former assistant, which was Coach Williams, he's at Jackson State right now as one of their women's assistants. And so in May, I had to bring on a new assistant, which was Ronika Robertson. She was phenomenal. Okay. She came in, she was here in July, August, and around September, she got a phone call from Southeastern Louisiana. Wow. They needed an assistant. They had lost an assistant, kind of moving into the mid of the year, which that's hard for anyone.
Sure.
But
especially October 15th is when the season starts. There's a lot of college basketball here, Coach. I know. I got the whole thing down. I'm doing this 3.5 years covering college basketball. So I have the whole thing written down.
So she basically, had an opportunity to go to Division I level about 6 weeks before we got ready to start season. And of course, we're a junior college, just like we want our players to get to the next level. You want your assistant coaches to be able to advance as well. Right. And so it was a tough decision for, we still talk once a week to this day, but it was something, she couldn't turn down at the moment, which left us, trying to find another assistant right before we got the season. And so that's when Coach Forrest stepped in as an interim assistant just to get us through the season. And then her mom had a stroke during the holidays. Oof. And so she's the only child that's still here in Mississippi. And of course, we only get one mom. Right. And, after Christmas, she couldn't return because she had to go take care of her mother, which is, once again, understandable.
Absolutely.
So from January to the end of season, I had to finish out season alone. The girls, they adjusted, they adapted. I said I had a tough group of girls, But at the end of the day, that assistant role, that's very important. They're the bridge between us and the players. And so we faced a lot of adversity there. The second half of the season, we was on the road the first half. We're bringing a lot of those kids back. We got a new assistant coming in, which I know she's going to do a phenomenal job. And so it was just one of those years where, we just faced a lot of adversity, but we got a glimpse of who we can be. And a lot of those girls are returning. We're adding in a great freshman class with the group that we had. And I really feel like, we're going to make a huge run in the actual conference coming up this next season.
I have a good feeling about that. And I want to get to the fact that you didn't have a real coaching staff. And I've spoken to countless college basketball coaches over the past 3.5 years. And there were some schools, they had almost like a presidential cabinet in the amount of coaches. And that was obviously not even at the D1 level, believe it or not. And then there were other schools that had, they had like one assistant and one part-time assistant. And the fact that you were shorthanded here, I mean, how were you able to go through a season like that? Because I couldn't imagine, because like I said, I speak with coaches all the time, and I know how it works at this level by now. I know the process. I know Michael Williams, who represents you. I know when he was a coach. So I know how this works at this level. I've covered enough basketball. And I mean, how are you able to handle the day in and day out too? Because you do need assistance. You do need
Right.
X and O's. You do need to strategize. You need to go over different things. I mean, like, how did that make you feel in terms of the season and going through it? And walk me through all that.
Honestly speaking, it was
Sure.
exhausting.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
And it was really tough. It was a lot of days just kind of, you're in that moment, so you just have to do it, because at that point it's really about the players.
Sure.
So you don't want to let them down. But that was really tough. It was tough mentally, and it was tough emotionally. And so, and I know if I was battling with it, I know the players were as well. But somehow we made it through. We made it through that season. I know last year we finished 5-10. This year we finished 14-10. And so doing our post meetings.
Well, I almost have to give you a pass on the 5-10 year, because it was the COVID year. I have to give you a pass on that. So I can't really, like, that's to me the asterisk. That's forever going to be for our golf fans a mulligan, because it was just, you got to just say it's an asterisk because of everything that went down. So I mean, that's in itself certainly one that can talk about for years and years to come and relive that. But I mean, going 14-10 through everything we just talked about, that's got to make you feel good. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, to not have a full staff, to even start in the year, we still were in the throes of, well, who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. I know it's different in different parts of the country, but still, I mean, there's safety issues. There's an issue of no fans. There's an issue of all these different things that we went through. I mean, at the end of the day, to go 14-10, be back in the postseason, I mean, it's got to make you feel good, though.
Definitely. Like, once you get out of it, you definitely feel good looking back at it. But of course, you always want we didn't get the advance during the postseason, and so you're always wanting more. And I think the biggest goal and the one thing that I want from this group, because they are the COVID kids and a lot of them are coming back for their third year, is that I want them to get the full effect of being here at Mississippi Gulf Coast and having a complete season. Like the first year they got here, we had COVID. Last year we just kind of went through the adversity with the assistants. And so I said, you know what? Third time got to be the charm, right?
Well, I would have to say I'm going to agree with you, because I got a good feeling about this, Coach. Something tells me I got a good feeling you know what you're doing. And again, at the end of the day, I mean, to think about everything that we went through in the last 2+ years, everything that these players went through, I mean, they also got to have, and we're going to get to some of them here in a few minutes, but got to give them a lot of credit, because they went through so much just to continue their careers, just to go and be athletes, just to be student athletes. I mean, listen, I mean, I don't know how I would have put up with it. I mean, I went to college not that long ago, but I could not imagine, all these kids that went to school and they were starting, like you said, you were recruiting them during COVID. I mean, to think that, it's 2020, 21, 22, and the fact that, they basically 2 years is a long time, and basically to go through all these things. I mean, your players have to be such tremendous quality human beings off the court, in addition to being great players on the court as well.
I would say this. I don't think, looking back at it, I'm realizing the effect that COVID really had on our student athletes, on the generation that was entering college at that time altogether. When they got to campus, we couldn't have events. They couldn't go to class.
Oh, I was speaking to coaches, and I'm sure it was the same for you. You could only recruit through Zoom. There was no more in-house tours. There was no more, hey, can we meet somewhere? I'll show you around. Everything was like, okay, what time can you be on Zoom? Or what time can your parents be on Zoom? What time can we get everybody on? There was no, like it used to be, where everybody would show up somewhere. If you wanted to recruit out of state, you really couldn't do any of that. I mean, it was almost like the Twilight Zone there.
It was the Twilight Zone. And then when they get to campus, you don't have class. Nothing is traditional.
I know.
So now everything is operating from the dorms. You're walking in the caf, and we got to keep up with a certain amount of numbers that's coming in. So just the way that the normal social life would go, they didn't get that their first year. And of course, that does have a psychological effect, because we couldn't practice like we wanted to. We had to drop our numbers down with how many people that we have in the gym at one time. And then, one person get COVID, then the whole team has to come home because you got a trace report. So nothing was normal. And then you come back that following year, you're trying to get back on the roll with somewhat of some normalcy. And as coaches, we're just ready to roll, but I think the student athletes were still having a hard time adjusting. They come into a year, it's not a traditional year. And then all of a sudden, we're trying to throw back traditional stuff on them. Like, okay, now we got football games. Okay, we can go to this. You can walk in the cafeteria. Now you have to go to class. So now it's just a challenge till you went from you don't have to go to class. Now we're back knocking on the doors and saying, hey, you got to get up. You got to get up and go to class, or it's going to be consequences for you missing class. And so the adjustments that they should have had coming out of high school, they were dealing with that their sophomore year.
Listen, it's tough enough to go to class when things are normal, right? It's tough
Right.
enough to do the day-to-day activities that you might when everything is normal and there's no COVID, there's no sicknesses and contact tracing and vaccine tests and everything else that you want to throw out there. So, I mean, almost in a sense, how is it like now? I mean, is everything back to normal where you are? I mean, walk me through what things are like now for you.
So, like, to answer your question about the girls, yes, they're very resilient. In the moment when you're going through things, you're just tough as a coach. You're tough on them. But looking at it now, yeah, they're a tough group of young ladies. Now it's back to normal.
Okay.
We had a regular football season this year, and our football team is pretty good, and so they got to go to games. They had student activities on campus. Where their first year, we didn't have a lot of student activities, and so now they got a year of normalcy this fall and this spring.
Oh, listen, I mean, let's hope never to go through that again, right? I mean, you take a step back regardless of where you are, and I speak with people all around the world, and we speak with a lot of people in England, and they were pretty much in lockdown literally up until, well, just about now, maybe a couple of weeks,
Right.
about a year from now. I mean, so there were different parts, and I know in different places that went through different things, and we're very happy that you guys and everybody else are back to normal here, and let's hope and keep our fingers crossed that things only get better from which I believe they will. I mean, obviously we've got some really good players that you had here on this team. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that struck me most about this team, and I think you brought up the word resiliency, and there was a game particularly, Coach, in the season I really felt like in kind of introducing our listeners here and everybody watching about the team that you have here is that win against Mississippi Delta, where you score the last 17 points in the game, you win it 55-45. And I mean, walk me through a game like that, because I know you've coached a lot of different teams, you've been involved in a lot of different spots, to basically go on a 17-0 run to end a basketball game and to win the way you guys did. I mean, how big was that when you look at the season and you brought up the term resiliency? I have to think that's the example. So walk me through your memories of that game and maybe how important that game was when you're looking back on this season.
Up until that point, we had been struggling. I think we might have been on like maybe a 4-game losing streak when we got to Mississippi Delta. And I always told them they got to make it tough. Like we it's this thing about we get behind that we got to make a comeback. But this year, I can't say this. We guarded the ball. Our own ball pressure was awesome. I am a defensive-minded coach. We basically we focus on defense in practice, as well as because we just want to play fast. We're in junior college. We want to get the ball up and down the floor. We want to, we can get transition buckets. That's the way we want to play. If we got to set up a play, then you got to be able to execute. But we want to get after people full court. We want to pressure. We want to disrupt the game. We want to get as many possessions in the ball game as we can.
Sure.
And we want to make the other team have to keep up with us. And so that particular game we were struggling scoring bad. We had I think we scored 104 points this year, and we had a game where we scored 102. And so we had games where we're running up the scoreboard, but we were struggling. And then we just applied the defensive pressure. Our defensive pressure picked up. Of course, we had a real intense moment in a timeout. But just to see how, it was some kids that came off the bench that weren't starters that came in and gave us some great momentum off the bench. But just to see how they rallied up together and got that win, that was a big win for us all because we needed the win. Like we needed to taste the win in that moment.
Do you feel like that win, and again, don't tell me what happened in the timeout, don't tell me all those things, keep that between you and the players, but in terms of the game's over, and then you guys are in the locker room, I have to imagine that not to say that you guys weren't together, but you guys were going through some tense moments in the fact that you guys are down in that game. You guys are on a losing streak. You're slumping, and there's still the thoughts from last year before where you're 5-10. It was the COVID year, but I mean, that had to have brought you guys all together as a team, winning a game like that.
It did. It was that Saturday where we were able to breathe. We got on the bus. Everybody was happy. Everybody was excited. And everything looked promising for that moment. I think maybe the next 2 games, they were tough. But that last game of the season, we were able to rally back up, get it together. And that was the win that we really need to qualify for the spot that we needed in regionals. And so that win actually gave us the momentum to know, like, okay, we did fall short the next 2 games, but that last game when it really counted, we wanted a good seed in the regionals. They rallied together once again. I think we were down. That last game of the season was similar to that Mississippi Delta team. We held the team scoreless for the last 5 minutes of the game to win by 2 points. And so we showed flashes of greatness all year. I think the biggest struggle was just being able to maintain that greatness with everything that we was already going through as far as losing 2 assistant coaches and then like just kind of struggling through the season. We were high, we were low. We just couldn't really find that in between.
Sometimes it's tough. I mean, sometimes you kind of want to get that flow and get that rhythm. And I know at different schools back here in the New York tri-state area here, there were some schools that started the season and they had to break because of the COVID situation. And there was situations with players not being able to play. So I know it was tough in some cases for everybody to get a flow regardless of the way things happen. And you brought up defense, and when it came to the conference and it came to the NJCA as a whole, you guys were one of the premier defensive teams. And I mean, what made you such a good defensive team? I know you talked about the fact that the girls got up and down the court, 104, 102 points, but you did have, again, defensively rebounds and holding teams down points per game. I think you guys held your opponents into the 60s. I mean, at the end of the day, those are hallmarks of a good team. I mean, What made you as a team stand out defensively as such a good team this year?
One of our team goals is that we want to hold our opponents to 55 points of under, and then we want to be 10 plus margin on the rebounds every single game. And if we're not, we come in the next day after a game, we figure out, did we reach our goal? Did we not? It's some consequences to that, but we really mainly focus on rebounds, making sure that we're limiting teams to 1 shot. And I think that's the most important thing. If you could limit teams to 1 shot, especially in our league as far as JUCO, you could be a pretty good defensive team. The second thing is being able to guard the ball. And so 1 through 5, all our players can pretty much guard the ball one-on-one. And then after that, when you're in help, you could pretty much figure that part out. But
sure,
everybody can guard the ball. And then the third thing is just to make sure that we're limiting our turnovers, and we want to force turnovers. We want to force teams into 18 plus turnovers a game, and we want to keep our turnovers below 12 per game. Therefore, now we're reaching our goal that we want to reach offensively, as well as we want to basically control the other team through our defensive pressure. And we want to be very physical. I like my teams to be very physical. I like to be active. We want to communicating. We want to disrupt the other team offense in any way we can. And we come in and we emphasize that every single day, from rebounding to on-ball pressure to being in help and to communicating. That's the thing that we emphasize every single day. And I was told when I first got into this, the things that you basically teach the most are the things that you're going to be good at. And so we emphasize rebounding and defensive pressure every single day in practice.
I'm glad you brought up the turnovers because I was thinking about the Hawks and Heat series in the NBA, and I remember Trae Young, I think, having more turnovers than I think assists and points in one of the games. And I think that was ultimately like, you know what? Well, that's really why you win and lose basketball games. So if you're going to rebound the ball well, if you're going to keep possession, because you talked about possessions, you talked about you want to have the most possessions. So if you're not turning the ball over, you're going to have the most chances to score. And obviously, the name of the game is to score the most
Right.
baskets. If we're limiting the turnovers, if we're getting those second chance opportunities, and we're playing smart, that's why we did go 14-10, and these are reasons why we are honored to have on Coach Hope Adams, who's doing a phenomenal job here. And again, Coach Adams 3 on Instagram, Coach Adams MG CCC on Twitter, MG CCC_WBB. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. We are speaking, of course, about the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College women's basketball team, the Bulldogs. Again, have had a lot of success the last few years. Coach has done a phenomenal job. When Coach took over the program, well, they weren't winning anything. Now they're winning a lot of games, getting into the postseason, so we have a very good feeling they're going to get back and have a banner season coming up here in 2022-23. Let's get to some of the players here on the team, because you really did have a lot of players that did a lot of the things you just talked about. So at the end of the day, let's get into some of those and why they were so successful. So I want to get to the first player here, and Elise Harris. Talk to me about Elise Harris and why she was such an important cog to this team.
Okay, so Elsie.
Okay. I knew I was going to butcher something. Forgive me, Coach. I always make everybody happy.
Everybody does that.
We have a big following in the UK, and I'm number one, like in 5 towns there, and I butcher like some of the towns there, and the towns actually, they use it like when we go on the radio, and they love it. So, I mean, some people like when I say it, some people, so forgive me. I always like to tell people I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so we're used to butchering every name in the book, every mispronunciation, so that's where my background comes in. But I do apologize. Elsie Harris, thank you for letting our audience know that.
Elsie has been phenomenal for us. Last year, she actually tore her PCL, MCL, and her meniscus in a scrimmage game. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, even though COVID didn't count, she did not get to participate at all. Mm-hmm. And so she has made a comeback. She dedicated herself to her therapy. She's a great kid. On top of that, she's a gym rat. She's a very hard worker. She doesn't stop. She's one of those kids, she make a mistake, and then the next play after that, she's still going full speed. And so this year was really like her freshman year. This is her first year playing college basketball. She brought us a lot of fire. She brought us a lot of grit, intensity, and leadership. And so I love that kid on and off the court. But as far as just a basketball player, she led us in moments where we needed people to step up. She was not afraid to step up.
Well, we could certainly see why. She obviously was in double digits for you, and she was one of those players that you could rely on and get those baskets. And another player that I thought was important on the team this season was Beverly Tillman. And Beverly, again, was another huge cog in the wheel here. We had a number of them, so we're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. But walk me through Beverly Tillman and why was she such an important cog to this team this year?
Beverly is the player that no one can stay in front of.
Those are the players that you love on your team and hate if they're playing against you.
Right. She's the fire of the group. She's the fireball of the group. She's the one, you got to keep on a short leash, but you want to go to battle with her. If you're in the trenches, you want Beverly Tillman right there with you. She's the smallest player I have on my team, but I mean, she has the heart of a lion. She is not afraid of absolutely anything. I know a lot of times I was actually making her a highlight today, and I was looking at like when she's slashing to the basket, and she's about every bit of 5'5" and 100 pounds, and she's rolling in there on 6 threes with no fear, and then looking at them like. And so, like, she's a special kid. She's a fun kid to coach,
sure,
and as well as she's a fun kid to watch. And I would think that her teammates would say she's fun to play with. Just as far as she's a fighter, she wants to win. I tell all the time she's a very sore loser.
You want that though, Coach. You do want that. You don't want happy winners or happy losers.
But she brings us a lot of fire to the team. She, like I said, she's very resilient. She's another kid. She tore ACL twice in her high school career. But just to see how she has bounced back for that, and she keeps pushing and she keeps going, I'm actually looking for big things for Beverly. Big
Oh,
thing.
I could certainly see that. I mean, listen, I hear those injuries. I mean, listen, my wrestlers that I'm on the radio friends with, they haven't had, I think, that bad of injuries. And the fact that she's still coming out there and having the success that she has, I think certainly speaks volumes in terms of what she brings to the table. And obviously, another player I want to get to, who I think was your leading rebounder, and obviously one of those players that you need in terms of just that power, and Sharice Bridges. I mean, walk me through Sharice Bridges. I mean, just almost like a double-double for you almost. I mean, she literally was almost like your version of Andre Drummond in his prime almost. I
Right.
mean, walk me through why she had such a good season for you guys.
Okay, so Sharice is actually the player that I was speaking about earlier with her weight loss journey.
Okay. I would never have guessed.
Yes. And so the main focus for her is us being able to get her up and down the court. Like, she is a beast. When she's in there, she set her mind to it. She's a force to reckon with in that paint. As well as she's very efficient from behind the arc. She was actually my best 3-point shooter. And she's my center. And so just as far as we joke all the time, she told me after this summer she's going to come back and she's going to be a big guard. She was like, Coach, I'm gonna transition into a guard. But she's another one. She's an elite competitor. Very, very hard worker. I don't know. You might not know much about Mississippi, but here in Mississippi, we only get 3 out-of-staters. And so the core of our team has to be Mississippi kids, and we have 15 JUCOs in this state. And so the actual recruiting is very competitive, with the fact that you got to make sure that you're getting out there and you're getting the best Mississippi kids to come into your program. And then you have to make sure that you're landing really good out-of-staters to come in and be difference makers as well. And so Beverly and Sharice both are in-state kids that basically came out in their class. They were top in their class as far as on the recruiting list. But they have came in and really helped push this program to where it is now. And so they're both coming back for the 3rd year. And I'm hoping that, not hoping, our goal is for Sharice is that she will be that double kid next year. And honestly, I really think, even though she came in, she was a very skilled player. She was overweight, but the kid can really play. And I'm looking forward to in March where she signs off at, because I think she's a mid-major kid. We finish out that weight loss. She's going to have a phenomenal story.
I got a good feeling about that. Listen, she's right there. I mean, you're averaging 8 rebounds a game and a little under 10 points a game. You're going to definitely be, I think you're going to just be right there. And another one of those players, again, you could think about just almost there also, TK Catchings. I mean, walk me through the kind of season that she had and how important she was. Because I think the fact that we were so good rebounding and defensive-wise was because of Sharice and TK. Because when you think about it, take a step back, you got 2 players that average just about 14 rebounds a game for you. I mean, that's why you had those second chances. That's why you had those possessions. Those are the things that we talked about and why we were 14-10. So talk to me about the season that she had and how important it was.
TK is like our bull. She's just a force. She's a physical specimen. She has a gift to really go hunt down offensive rebounds, and that's a gift within itself. She could go grab about 8 offensive rebounds a game. She gets in there. She knows how to kind of wiggle her way in between the bigger post players and position herself to get those putbacks. And then Sharice on the other end usually clears off the boards defensively. And so they're kind of like that perfect tag team. With how we want to dominate the boards on both sides of the floor. But TK, like I said, she's a physical specimen. She's just a force of nature. She'll be returning as well. I think the biggest thing with her is that we're working on was just as far as her finishing around the basket, because she gets her opportunities and she gets to the line a lot. She attempts a lot of shots because she's just very physical. And so, but her ability to get offensive rebound is like no other. And so, now I'm getting excited really talking about these kids, because once you really start going through your roster and realize, like, okay, I'm bringing that one back.
You had a lot of good players I wanted to talk about. I mean, sometimes I speak with coaches and teams and I'm like, well, there was like 2 players on the team, and we had to almost what you call window dress them. And
Right.
really, you had like 5 or 6 players on this team that, you know what, they really are important parts of this team. You guys were really well balanced. And, and that's the reason why I see you getting excited, because one of the things I've learned about at this level to win, whether it's a 2-year college or at the 4-year college at a D3 level, is that you got to have depth. You got to have
Yes.
9 or 10 girls that want to come in and play those significant minutes. You can't just win with just one superstar who scores the 20 a game, maybe one other player. No, you got to have like 9 or 10 players and really run a roster of like 14, 15 deep, because that's the name of the game here. The name of the game is those little things that you do. It's not just a matter of, okay, well, we got the flashy person that scores 25, 26 a game. No, these are the things that you're talking about. And I think that's why you're so excited, because I see with this team, the reason that we are looking up and why you've turned this program around is the depth we have here with all these players.
I agree with that. Our main goal when we were recruiting this particular group is that we didn't want the superstar. We wanted kids that could come in, and we wanted them to be able to play a specific role. And we want you to be really good at that. Because in order to play fast, you do need depth. And, we practice. I say, look, I need you to be able to give me 4 hard minutes. Like just 4 minutes, being resilient on defense, pushing the ball, just running down people's throat. And by the time we get to the 4th quarter, nobody's practicing like that. Nobody's preparing themselves to play like that. Now, by the time we get down to the 4th quarter, it's going to get down to the team that's the most in shape and that's used to playing that way. And usually that's when we started to chip away in that 4th quarter, especially in the first half of the season. We were playing really, really well. We were playing our best basketball. But now that I'm thinking about these kids, because we still got Anaya Sadler.
Anaya Sadler was on my list.
Yes.
Morgan Payne, I was going to mention next. I mean,
She's a downhill guard. She has an elite mid-range game. She's an elite defender, an extremely gifted athlete. And on top of that, she's a great kid, and she's a competitor. And so we're bringing Anaya back as our slasher and our defensive player. We got Sharice under the basket. We have Elsie, who's not only just she can score. She is a scorer. She can go headhunt a basket. She's that kid when you need a bucket, she can go get you a bucket. We got Beverly Tillman, who's also just an all the way around player. She's a slasher. She's a shooter. She's mid-range, and then she defends. On top of that, we have TK coming back as well in this group. And then we're adding in some really key pieces that are coming in as freshmen that I'm really excited about as well. And we're getting in a transfer as well. And so I'm really excited about next season.
And I'm really excited about it. And these are reasons why you need to follow the Bulldogs, of course, on Twitter at MGCCC_WBB. We also have a camp coming up. Speak to me about the camp and what we look for here. And I know that was on our Twitter page, and I wanted to at least recognize that in terms of running the camps and talk about that for those who are watching and listening to this, the importance of those camps.
So here we do basically a team camp. So we do a high school team camp for our local high schools, or, any high school that want to participate. Of course, you are welcome. And so we do that every year. This year we're doing it on the 9th. And so right now we have 10 schools committed to come in on the 9th, and it's still early. So we'll probably get anywhere between five more. We also do a middle school team camp as well, because I'm a firm believer that the young ones need to get in some reps.
Sure.
I think the more time you spend playing, the better you get.
Okay.
And so we do a middle school team camp for all our local middle schools in the area. We are in a rural area in Mississippi, so we don't do a lot of elite camps or skill camps, because the nearest city is about 30 miles. So that'll be tough for somebody to drop their kids off and then go back.
Sure.
But we just try to make sure that we stand in contact with the high schools within the surrounding areas, giving them an opportunity to come in. That also give us an opportunity to recruit, because of course we have to have more Mississippi kids, so we get to put our eyes on those kids during our team camp.
Oh, listen, everybody recruits different ways and such, and those are reasons why, again, you need to go over and follow the Bulldogs on Twitter, MGCCC_WBB. Also, again, Coach Adams 3 on Instagram. Also, Coach on Twitter as well. Make sure you follow Coach for all the great things that she is doing. And I wanted to also get into, obviously, we spoke about some of the players and we've spoke about some of the different things. And I'll come back to the recruiting because I always find it fascinating for every coach in terms of their recruiting process, especially at the community college level, because it's a little different than some other places. But in terms of when you first took over the team in 2018, we're winless in conference, and then the next year you get all the way to the NGCAA championship game. I mean, what did that feel to be able to, in such a short amount of time, be able to turn around the program? Because I know with some schools it's a little different in terms of expectations, but you kind of did it like right off the bat, Coach. I mean, did you have like a secret potion? Did you have like a magic wand that you just like, okay, you know what? We're going to go from winless in conference to being in the championship game the next year. I mean, you got to walk me through that because that was an impressive job you did there.
I have to give that credit to every player that decided that they wanted to be a big bulldog during that time period when we weren't winning. I have to give that credit to them. That year where we went winningless. Sorry.
It doesn't matter because that was how the season went anyway, right? That was how the season went. No problem.
So the team that year that we did not win a single conference game, we spent a lot of time on the road. My assistant at that time was Stacy Malone. So our whole goal was, look, we got to get kids that could come in and believe in this program and that want to take it to the next level. And so we had key players that decided, you know what, I want to go be the difference maker at Gulf Coast. So that year we had Kayla Simmons, who was an all-regional, all-state player to come in. We had Brianna McCullough. We had a 5-star post player, so I cannot leave that out. Transfer in from Mississippi State as well.
That's impressive, Coach. That's very impressive. I mean,
just the players where you could have went anywhere. You could have went anywhere in the world to play JUCO ball, but you believed in the program, you believed in myself, and you decided to be here. And so I'm forever thankful for those players because it's the players that take your program to the next level. And, we know a lot of X's and O's, but at the same time, you need your Jimmies and your Joes. And so we were able to get in a couple of Jimmy and Joes to help take us to the championship game that next year. And basically what we were basically telling those kids, like, look, we have a goal. We have a goal set in mind for Mississippi Gulf Coast. I know you have other options. I know it's other teams winning, but you could come do that here. You could come make history here. And so that 5-star actually ended up being a JUCO All-American for us. And that group right there, they went 16-10, made it all the way to the championship game. We made it to the semifinals in state. And then the following year, that group of sophomores, they went 17-8. They made it to the semifinals in state, and we made it all the way to the semifinals and regionals as well.
Walk me through, at least, because I know we didn't win, but walk me through what was that like being in the championship game in 2019? I mean, I have to think it's something you think about and maybe you speak about quite a bit. I'm sure you get asked also a lot about it back home. I mean, what was that experience like being in the championship game that year?
It was awesome. I think at that moment, I didn't know if we could win. The team that we were playing, they're a really good team in our league. Sure. They're ranked nationally every year. And so, but I understood in that moment what it was going to take to get there again, but not just be there, but to win it all. And so from that moment on, that's been our goal. We want to be there, but when we get there, we want to win it all. And I honestly think this is the group right here that can get it done. They've tasted it. They've seen it. They're going to have a lot of JUCO experience under their belt returning for their third year. And so you know how the turnover go in JUCO. It's like every 2 years you're turning them out. Well, now, we have the opportunity to say, hey, we technically have juniors. So you got third-year kids in your system. And so I think that
the waiver, like you said, the waiver is a big deal. It actually helps you more than anybody else because you would have lost everybody. You would have had to have gone right back from scratch. And basically had to recook the meal. Now you basically got another chance with these players because of the waiver.
And so, being at that championship game allowed me to see as a coach that we can do this. We can do this in this program because, the year before that, we didn't win a conference game. The year after that, we're sitting right there. We make postseason for the state tournament. We make postseason for the regional tournament. Then we make a run in regionals and, end up in the championship game. And so it let me know that we can do this here at Mississippi Gulf Coast. And so the next goal, even though that's been 4 or 5 years ago, the next goal is to make sure that we're able to bring that championship home.
And I got a good feeling, ladies and gentlemen, that Coach Hope Adams and the girls basketball team are going to do that and some. We are very excited about the program. We look forward to covering the program here during the season because, listen, today is May the 10th, but it's going to come here in a hot skip in a minute. Listen, we're not that far away. I'll be honest with you, Coach. I know we do a lot of wrestling here, but I'm missing college basketball. I'm missing college basketball our level because I always joke with a lot of people and our listeners. I say, I don't know what my life's like without Wednesday college basketball games on the stream, Tuesdays, Saturdays, Fridays. I mean, life hasn't been the same the past 2 months. I mean, for you, it's been probably a little less than that. I mean, life hasn't been the same. I mean, I'm trying. I'm trying to get through things, but I know sooner rather than later we will have a lot of basketball to talk about. And also, Coach Adams, MGCC, please make sure you follow also MGCCC_WBB on Twitter. Coach Adams3 also on Instagram as well. I'm telling you, you're definitely going to want to follow her. Also, the Williams Advancement Agency, Williams Advance 1 without the E on Twitter, Williams Advancement Agency on Instagram as well. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. We've got another about 20 or so minutes with Coach Adams, and we're very grateful for the opportunity we've been given to speak with her, really enjoying her story, really enjoying speaking some college basketball. Also, as always, a huge shout out once again to Michael Williams with the Williams Advancement Agency. And Coach, I got to ask you about him because I've brought him up like 4 or 5 different times. And he hates. So I've done a number of interviews with his different people he represents in the past. He hates when I bring him up deep down, but he likes it. He won't admit it, but he likes it. But you have to ask. I have to ask you about Coach Williams, or you know him as Michael Williams now because he's no longer a coach, but I still call him Coach. I mean, he probably is like, Tom, I'm not a coach anymore, but obviously Michael Williams, you have to ask me about what he's done for you, being a part of the Williams Advancement Agency and kind of how that went down and how it's helped you overall for your career.
Michael has actually been phenomenal. Before him, I was just the kind of Mississippi junior college coach. And so he's been able to actually connect me with people such as
he's a very good networker. He's a very, very good networker. Take it from me. I know him from the New York area. He's a very good networker.
And so I was able to get in contact with him through a mutual friend as well that he represents. And I was just kind of looking for that next step in my career. And so he's been right there with me. I might be maybe one of the most difficult clients, I would say, because I get comfortable in my comfort zone, but he's really pushing me outside of that comfort zone, even to the point of being here talking to you, Tom. And so, and I think that's our preparation because, whenever that next step is or that next journey that God has in life, I feel like he's really getting me prepared for that next step. And so I'm thankful for Michael. The funny part is we have never met in person.
I was going to ask you that because I know Coach very well, and I was actually thinking about, has he come down and watched you play? I was kind of wondering about that because I see him all over the place. I do see him at different places in different camps in different states. I was kind of wondering, has Coach come out and watched you played?
But I will say this, he watched the games because he's, after the games, he's right there.
I can tell you, he definitely would have watched. I know it wasn't. Trust me, I know him. He would have definitely watched you on the stream, just like I would. He definitely would.
He's definitely right there. So I'm excited just about growing with him and the things that he has going as well. And so I'm excited about being a part of that.
Absolutely, huge shout out as always to Coach Williams, and cannot thank him enough for all the opportunities he has given us and the opportunity to speak with great people like yourself. And you touched upon something that I sort of was going to ask toward the end of our segment, but now I'm going to ask it because you did touch about the future and God's plans. And, I was kind of curious. I mean, where do you see yourself? Is this the place that you see yourself long term? I hate to ask things like that, but obviously, who knows what the future brings? You've done a
Right.
phenomenal job here at Mississippi Gulf Coast. I am sure somebody's going to be out there and say, you know what, Coach Adams has really turned that program around. She's done a great job. She's a great basketball mind. She knows her stuff. I mean, like, what are your goals? I mean, where do you see yourself, let's say, a few years from now, 5 years from now? I mean, I always like to ask this question to different coaches. I mean, walk me through some of your thoughts on that.
Honestly, I work for a great administration. And here at Gulf Coast, I tell everybody, we're not the typical JUCO, like we're saying, like limited resources. Sometimes like we got a brand new cafeteria.
I can see behind you. It looks very nice. Now, like I know a lot of JUCOs in New York, and it's like clown college almost. It don't look like where you are,
Yeah, and right now I'm sitting in the old gym. I have a brand new office and a brand new arena.
Wow, the old gym looks better than some of the Division III gyms I've dealt with. Not to name schools, so that's pretty impressive there, Coach.
And so our administration here, they, in all the buildings, not just for athletes, but just as far as providing the resources for our students to make sure that they are successful. And so we have brand new dorms. We have, we got our own charter buses, for crying out loud. We got our own campus physical therapists. And so
I should have went to Mississippi Gulf Coast. I wouldn't be doing this right now. Maybe life would have been different for me all those years ago. My parents probably would have signed up for that.
But I can say this: when I first got here, all these plans were in place. And so I'm working on my 7th year and I'm seeing them all unfold. And it's all for the betterment of our students, and our athletes get the benefit from that. And so all our facilities here have been updated. We have a brand new football facility. We have a brand new baseball, softball. Our soccer is getting brand new turf right now. And like I said, we're getting a brand new arena. And so they take care of us here. And so for that in the future, if God opens that door and it's the right move and it benefits my family and I could take it into consideration because I do have children.
Sure.
And so it's not so much about me. It's about us as a whole, and Mississippi Gulf Coast take care of all of us.
And I think that that's fair. And I know it would be different because you have a family. So a lot of different people at this level, and obviously Coach Williams will certainly attest to it. You're basically centering your whole life would be the game of basketball. Your whole life would be just going to the next place and journey. You have a family, so it's a different consideration. It's a different walk of life. So I could certainly sympathize with some of those things, and I can appreciate and respect that answer. So I almost have to ask you then, now that we're going toward 2022, what are your goals for this year?
The main goal is to basically come in and leave it all out. I want to give this year everything I have. Not only to the players, to my children, to myself, that I want to make this the best year. As far as work, my personal life, me as a mother, just to make sure that growth is happening and that I can be the best version of myself for the people that I'm going to basically connect with daily. So the main goal is that I want to make sure, like as far as with my players, that I'm coming in every day and I'm making sure that I'm putting them in the best position to be successful, especially coming off a year like last year. I think I have a chip on my shoulder. I know my players have a chip on their shoulder because we didn't finish as strong as we knew we could have. And so I think we're all coming in with a different mindset. And I know, like talking to them now, and we're in the group messages and seeing them do their workouts, it's a different type of motivation because it's coming from self, and everybody is becoming self-motivated right now. And that's where you want your players. That's when you become the best version of yourself, is that when you are self-motivated from within and everybody's taking responsibility for their role on this team and what we have to bring to the table.
Let me ask you something because I wasn't going to ask you this, but I almost have to follow it up because you spoke about how there's self motivation. Everybody's motivated because you didn't feel the way the season ended was the right way based on the talent. Because you do have a lot of talent on this team.
Mhm.
Legitimately, there's some big names we went through, and I expect them to have even bigger years next year because of the self motivation you spoke about. But you've had some success here at the program. We've been to a championship game. We've been deep in the postseason a couple different times. Do you feel like right now, and I hate to compare to some of those teams, but do you feel like that maybe you have more like of a feel with this team going into it that you expect big things, whereas let's say compared to the going into that 18-19 season or that 19-20 season where you know what, expectations maybe weren't so high and it was kind of like you guys were almost like underdogs, not quite underdogs, but like nobody saw it coming, right? I mean, think
Right.
of it like think of it for Coach Williams. He was an assistant at the women's team at St. Peter's, almost like St. Peter's, right? Nobody saw St. Peter's in the NCAA tournament, right? I
Right.
mean, so you guys, in a sense, were kind of like that in 2019 in the NJCAA. Do you feel like they'll going into this season, 22-23? You know what? You feel like this is maybe the team of all the teams you've had. Like I said, you've had some big success. That this is the one you're going into. You know what? Because of all these players we just spoke about, whether it's Elsie, whether it's Beverly, whether it's Charisse, Morgan, TK, Anaya, anybody else, that this might be the best team, and this is the one that I feel like that I definitely expect, maybe even a championship. Talk to me.
Definitely. Like that first team we made to the championship game, there were no expectations. You're coming in and you're just motivating people. And when you're getting, the dub, we're excited, we're screaming, people getting videos because there's really no expectation. We're surprising ourselves daily. Even though it was talent on that team, it's
Sure.
just you're coming from not winning to winning, and now that group set the expectations. They didn't have anything to meet. They set those expectations. And so now with this group, it's kind of like the feeling that I really have, it's like, okay, we've been basically knocked down several times.
Hmm.
Adversity has hit us in every way possible. And so, and I explained to them before they leave, if we had to go through a season like that and it was total things that we could not control, it's not like we self-inflicted some of those things on ourselves. Like it's just the way things rolled out. This is what we are, and we're stuck in this situation together, and we're having to figure it out. I said it was something that we all had to learn in that season. It wasn't our time yet, but we got a glimpse of what it's going to look like. And so we have to be able to grow from that. The things that we need to leave behind, we got to leave those things behind. The things that we know we need, we got to pick those up, put that in our backpack, and we got to roll into 22, 23 with a mindset, and we're on a mission. And nothing, absolutely nothing can get in the way of that mission.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I cannot stress it enough. You want to follow the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College women's basketball team on Twitter. MGCCC_WBB, because they are on a mission. They are motivated. They are self-motivated. They are resilient. And I've got a very good feeling that this team is going to have a banner 22-23 season. And of course, Coach Hope Adams is a tremendous part of that. She is going into year 6 with the program. Time definitely flies, but I got a good feeling that it's going to be a very, very big year for the program. Exciting times are ahead, and we've got a few more minutes with Coach. And I almost have to ask you then, because you kind of touched upon it with the recruiting. I know a lot of players are coming back, but I always do like to at least ask this question because I know some coaches are going to listen to this because I know a lot of coaches at this level. I saw Coach Vicina at the very beginning check into this, and he's a coach, obviously, pretty much at the same level you are. And is it different for you than maybe somewhere like at a 4-year school, even at a D3 level to recruit? I mean, walk me through when you recruit. And you've got some great players we spoke about. We talked about a few different transfers in the past, but walk me through you recruiting versus somebody else and maybe what you look for particular in a player to come here at Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Like I stated earlier, in Mississippi, we basically have to take Mississippi kids. We only get 3 out-of-staters.
Okay.
And so Our first job as, the head coach as well as the assistant is to make sure that we're hitting the ground in Mississippi. And to try to land the top talent that could come in, to make sure that we're staying right there in the middle. You got 15 JUCOs, 150 kids getting on scholarship. That's tough. And so you want to make sure that you're getting those kids at least right there in that top 50 range to come into your program. Of course, in JUCO, it's all about development. So with that being said, it's not so much of the flashy player or the most skilled player. I look for motor first. I want a high motor player, because, you can develop those kids and enhance their skill set, but at least you're getting somebody that's going to go through a wall for you. Nothing burns me up like a kid that's overly talented but won't play hard. They don't give it all they got because they just wrapped up.
It's 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes. This is not somewhere else. You can say, okay, I can take the day off. I don't have to get the rebound. I don't have to dive for a loose ball. I don't have to box out correctly. I don't have to play defense. I don't have to learn how to press all the zones. So, I can appreciate that because I watched probably at this level maybe close to 100 college basketball games in the last year. And people ask me all the time, what do you look for in a college basketball game? And I say I have a completely different answer than anybody else because when I watch at this level, I see things totally different even than at the D1 and most certainly the NBA level, in that you really have to learn to play defense. You really have to learn to be able to box out. You have to be able to learn how to guard. You have to be able to go up and down the court and be able to play in certain styles. And because it's not going to always be where you're going to get your shot. It's not always going to be what you're going to have to be able to do certain things that maybe you were accustomed to or expected to. It's very team oriented at this level. And that's why I enjoy watching basketball at this level far more than any other level, because also I think that basketball at this level, it's almost like, how can I put it in a term that people can understand when they listen and watch it? It's almost like talking. It's almost like communication. When somebody moves the ball well, it's almost like they're speaking with the basketball. You can really tell at this level when somebody is a good team and somebody, well, not so much. So all those things are spoken like a great coach, and that's why you are a phenomenal coach. You have a phenomenal story. I am very excited to have had the opportunity to speak with you, and I thank Coach Williams one more time. Although you know him as Michael Williams, I still know him as Coach Williams, but at the same time, it all is the same. But I wanted to ask you two questions before we get out of here, and obviously, I cannot thank you enough for giving us the time to speak with you and share your story and get to know you, and I look forward to many, many more opportunities to speak with you, and of course, the Bulldogs program as a whole. But in terms of your career, they've had a lot of great moments as a coach, a player, and everything else. But give me one or two moments in your career that stand out most.
I would definitely say that 2018 year, making it to the regional championship game, as well as being coach of the year that year. Kind of, you're coming in, you're young. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm thinking like that first year, I'm like, Lord, what am I doing?
I won't name names. I've had a coach on here in New York 4 different times. I think he lost his first 50 games as a coach. And he wound up winning his conference championship. So it's sometimes we all get to that point. I can imagine.
So, and then for the next year to see the body of work just kind of working itself out and, seeing the program expand, and especially the program getting somewhere where it wasn't expected. Mississippi Gulf Coast women's basketball was the win. And we all know you do not want to be the team when everybody know they're about to play you, that they feel like they're going to win. And now we have earned that respect. Nobody marched through that door and feel like, okay, well, I'm going to beat this team. I feel like, I had one coach this year. After they beat us, they said, we snuck out with one. Well, that wasn't the case 6 years ago. And so that would definitely be one of the moments to understand that we do have the respect from the league now, and that we're a respectful program. I think the other moment in my career, Actually, I would say it's happening right now. That first class, they're graduating with their bachelor's.
Mm.
And so I got to send a video to a kid. Her parents was making her a little encouragement video. And so I got to do my little video and send it to her the other day. And it made me realize, okay, this group right here, they're getting their degrees. And so I've made it to that milestone where that first group, they're starting to push out and starting to get out in the world and make their own name for themselves. And so I would say that will be the second highlight of the career, to see those group of kids getting their degrees and they're graduating. And I'm actually looking forward to about 2 or 3 years from now, actually being able to hire one of my former players. So that's one thing I really want to do as a coach, is be able to bring one of my former players in and let them actually grow under me as they have came through as a player, but actually be able to grow as a coach as well.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty cool. And obviously, for whatever reason, I think in my 5th grade graduation, when it was Elton John's The Circle of Life from the Lion King movie. So for whatever reason, it's almost like the circle of life. I mean, you were a player, you got the opportunity to coach, and then you're coaching and you give one of your players the opportunity. So for whatever reason, I'm thinking of my 5th grade graduation right now. So that Elton John Circle of Life. So don't kill me for it. I mean, certainly, I'm just trying to think of just a metaphor that makes everybody kind of feel good. And obviously on a positive note, and I have a lot of positive vibes that you're going to do some great things, and your players, most importantly, are going to do some great things, and they're going to do even bigger things off the court. Because at the end of the day, listen, we love what you've done on the court. We love all the wins. We love all the appearances in the postseason, but we know it's all at this level about the off the court, because there are very few players at this level that really go on and have the kind of careers that you see on TV. There's certainly a few exceptions. There's a player I covered at Yeshiva University, the men's basketball team, Ryan Terrell, but there's very few exceptions. So the fact that we're speaking the way you're speaking gives me very, very good feelings here about this program and all the great things you are doing. And Coach, it has been a tremendous honor to have you, and I can't thank you enough for giving us the time here and take time out of your business. And we're getting ready for recruiting, camps, family, all that stuff. So I want to give you now the floor. I want to give you any closing thoughts, anything you want to say to anybody who's listening, watching. Also, if you want to replug any social media, anything else on your mind. And I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I also cannot thank enough Michael Williams, again, the Williams Advancement Agency. So I turn it over to you, Coach. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to say, and I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours.
First, let me say thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on the show and speak. And I definitely want to give a shout out to Michael as well, for actually networking us together and for him actually providing this opportunity. He's been great. And I'm just looking forward for the future working with him and being able to actually work with you again and be on your show again as well.
Absolutely. We definitely make that happen. Basketball season ain't that far away, and I was telling coaches, now that we have the video, it's much easier. As before, I would do the podcast and I'd have to transfer the audio, I'd have to clean the audio, and I'd have to put it in correctly. Now it's like we stream it all over. We have a radio station, which we're broadcasted worldwide. We have a Roku channel. So it's like a totally different dynamic, and we're always looking for content. And most importantly, I'm looking for more college basketball to watch, because we're about 5.5 months away from the season. So that gives me another team to cover, another team to talk about. But Coach, it has been a tremendous honor. And one more time, I want everybody to follow, obviously, Coach Adams and all the great things that she is doing. You can do that again at Coach Adams 3 on Instagram, Coach Adams MG CCC on Twitter, MG CCC_WBB Williams Advancement Agency on Instagram, officially M Williams on Instagram, Williams Advance 1 on Twitter without the E. Those are all great places, all great people. Follow them, because we're going to be doing more content related to the Williams Advancement Agency coming up on Thursday with Stephen Gilbert, also from the Williams Advancement Agency. We'll get his story in as well. So I want to thank everybody here that is tuned in. Also, if you like on Facebook, Sportzwire Radio, I would really appreciate that. Give us a like and follow. Sportnarium.com/player also is a 24-hour station that we run. We play music, we play talk, we play sports, we play live content. So definitely, if you're bored and you want to break up the monotony of everything, whether it's your mutual fund account like mine, your crypto account, your 401k account, you want to get through forget all about that stuff, you can just head on over to sportnarium.com/player, and I play pretty much everything. We have live talk, live DJs, so do all that here. So If you are on Sportswire Radio and sportnarium.com/player, in about 40 minutes, you'll get a live show from Larry Frank, Frankly Speaking Sports, and we'll have more talk after that. If you're on Facebook here at Sportswire Radio, I want to thank you. Also, my page at Tom Bryce for tuning in. We'll be back here. I have a marathon tomorrow. I have pro wrestling talk. I have all different things we're going on here. We have a telethon, I think, also we're going to be doing tomorrow. So a lot going on here. I want to thank everybody that will tune in tomorrow. We'll also have on pro wrestlers from the LWF Balachius, GTM Old School MCT, CMC2, Bradley Cook Pattinson will be on the call for GTM's Judgment Day this Saturday. So thank you to everybody out there in the world. And you are on Sportswire Radio here, the #1 global radio station. We were with Coach Hope Adams of our Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College women's basketball team. Just completed a 14-10 season, returned to the NJCA, have a tremendous amount of talent coming back. Excited about the season here in a few short months. So thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon on all of our platforms, sportnarium.com/player. You will now get Larry Frank in about 35 or so minutes. So thank you, everyone. Good night. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Good night, and we'll be back here tomorrow. And thank you again, Coach Adams.
Thank you.